This the way I usually do these, types of classes is very interactive. So uh, a lot of questions I'll throw out there. I'll help guide some things. Hopefully, you guys are taking notes. But this is meant to be more of a mastermind than it is more of a teacher student thing. So um, that said, if I could get maybe like a if you're not going to go on video, maybe come off mute. Just tell me how long you've been in the business. That would help me.
Hi, I can share.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Is it Nasser?
Oh, sir, yeah. How are you?
Nice. Yeah, I'm good, man. Thank you. How long you been in the business?
Since about 2016. So
Very cool.
kind of seeing things go up and down. It's been
Yeah,
fun.
well, yeah, I mean, you're going to have a lot to add here because you've had almost 10 years of you know, transactions in business. So I'd love to hear some of your some of what you got. So okay, Vicky says 8 months. Okay, good. You guys can put this in the chat too. That's cool. Question is, how long have you guys been in the business? Nasir for almost 10 years. Vicky, 8 months. Who else? Anybody else? Okay. Kaylee Joy, only a few months. Okay, cool. Real quick, Kaylee Joy, because we've all been there. We all had a few, when we were first few months. What did you do before real estate? And same for Taylor. What did you do before real estate?
Um, Hi, I was a dental assistant a long time ago. And then I
Gotcha.
stopped and had raised two kids, and now I just got into real estate.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, metal building construction. Good Lord, Taylor. All right, cool. Um, so I appreciate that, guys. And thanks for coming off mute. I'm curious, why are we talking about listings of all things? Why listings? Why do you think?
It's the name of the game.
Okay, I'd agree. Why is it the name of the game?
It's kind of where you can really leverage your time, just
Yeah,
in exchange for, I guess, the value that it adds.
yeah,
There's multiple lead generation sources when you have listings versus just working with buyers where you're more kind of
yep,
behind the scenes. Listings
yep,
allow you to be kind of in front and up front of the action and stuff like that.
yep. You're spot on. Anybody else have anything to add or different as to why we're talking about listings today? All right, Nasir had it just about dead on. When you have listings, he talked about leverage. And leverage in this case means you can do more with you can do more listings than you can buyers. So I think we'd all agree, those of us that have been in this business even a short bit, it's a heck of a lot easier to have 5 listings than it would be 5 buyers. Why is that? Well, can we all agree that if you have listings, buyers are coming to you, but if you have buyers, you're out on the road and you're taking your buyers to different properties, right? Does that make sense? So that's why we're talking about listings today, because it is the highest form of leverage between those two sides. And so we're going to talk about where to find them, because in this market, especially this market right now, um, where you've got interest rates hovering, I don't know, what, 7% ish, you've got buyers or sellers rather that have been sitting in, uh, a 2.5, 3, maybe 4% interest rate for the last 5+ years. And now you know, they're asking themselves, well, why would I sell if I have to go now buy a house at 7%? So having listings, right, and finding listings is really um, a big part of the real estate battle plan right now. And when you have listings, right, you typically will bring buyers to you because you have your sign up in the yard, and maybe we're doing some other type of marketing, whether it be KSL or Facebook. Maybe people are, maybe you've got a text writer on your sign that people are texting in. But when you have a listing, you should expect to bring in at least one buyer that you can bring and add into your database to help either for that home or another home. So that's why we're talking about listings. And right now, just to give you guys some perspective, I am rebuilding my business because for the last 10 years, I was on a team, which I started in real estate. Then I ended up purchasing the team and had 2 business partners, and getting leads was no problem. It only became a problem when I decided to sell my portion of the team and go out on my own last year. And now I'm having to use this book and all the models in there and what we're going to be discussing tonight to try to build my business the way Gary Keller designed it, which is through listings and then leverage. Okay. Any questions so far as why we are talking about listings tonight before we get into the meat of it? Okay. First off, just in the chat, how many people have this and or have read it? Either one. There we go. Okay, good. Okay, you're working on reading. What is that, Nasir? Okay, good. Yeah, gotcha. Here's the thing. And if you're just starting to read it, it's the first time through this book is a book. Okay. After that, it becomes a manual for how to build and run your business. And this is a brand new one that's on the side of my home office, but the one I have at my office in Mill Creek is the original one that Josh Stern gave me 10 years ago that got me into the business. And it is dovetailed and highlighted and bent, and pages are falling out because it's now just a manual. And believe it or not, I'm in the same shoes as you guys because I am building my business after coming out of a team. And so listings are important. And my goal is that in the next 35, 40 minutes that we can walk away with a list and maybe even some strategies of where to find listings. Is that fair? Okay. So this is where you can plug it into the chat if everybody's good there. Let's talk first. Let's just throw out a list of where do we find listings? And then we'll start breaking that list down into tactical stuff of how do you convert them. Who's going to be first? All
I
right,
can
I'll
share
throw out a
again.
softball. What's that?
I can share again.
Yeah, please.
I've been working on kind of like a circle prospecting strategy
Love it.
for the last couple of months. Got some good warm leads. No listings yet. One
Yeah.
listing appointment. So the ball's starting to move.
Okay. So circle prospecting. I am gonna write a couple of these down because I think there's gonna be some good stuff to get my iPad out here. Okay, so tell everybody what circle prospecting is. I'm sure some do know, but maybe some others don't. What is circle prospecting?
So, my definition or the way I'm doing it might be a little bit different than your traditional circle prospecting, but in general, I believe it's when you have a listing, like in a neighborhood, and you can piggyback off of that listing and you prospect the neighbors around it, you can delegate using, like the different softwares out there. You can delegate what type of owners you're reaching out to, like high equity, senior, tax delinquent, stuff like that. So you can choose who you want to reach out to.
Yeah.
But basically you let them know that, hey, I'm selling this property, they're getting this much, yeah, etc. And are you interested in selling essentially?
Yeah. Okay,
Kind of like
that
the
is a great.
rough pitch.
Yeah, no, that's a great tactic and a good script there. So yes, what Nasir is saying is on his circle prospecting, he's doing it around a just listed, which is great. So really good strategy. We could also take that same list around a just listed, and when that home sells, could we not call that too? And remind them, hey, I had a home, I called you last week or last month, whatever. And just want to let you know that home sold and we sold for X dollars. Who do you know who's looking to sell right now? Or have you thought about selling yourself? And sometimes that second call is even more valuable because now they can put in their mind the value of a house that is, close to where they live. And oftentimes I get the, oh my gosh, there's no way that home sold for that amount. Well, yes, it did. Are you curious about what the value of your home is? And now all of a sudden, that gives you an entry point to go and walk their home, give them a market analysis, add them to your database, touch on them so that when they do transact, they think of you. See how that works? Well, we call it a circle call because it'll start one and come all the way around for you. And what Nasir said, which is actually true, is he's like, I haven't gotten any business yet from it, but he's got some leads. And that is the name of the game. It is about adding people to your database, feeding your database, staying top of mind, and then they'll come back to you. So that's circle calls. All right. Anybody else? Another way of finding listings.
Sorry, I'm late, but
And
are you asking just for ideas?
yeah. We're just making a list here. And thanks for
Um,
participating.
Oh, no worries. I think just your sphere of influence, like in your day to day, I
Mhm.
get a lot of my leads from just talking to other moms because I'm a stay at home mom. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, you have a little network, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm glad SOI came up because if it didn't come up here, it would definitely come up. Does anybody know who Lee Stern is?
Yes, I'm actually on a call with her tomorrow.
Okay. So Lee Stern is somewhat of a badass. Her her business, I mean, she was on the team with me before we left last year. Her business is 100% SOI. 100% SOI. She moved out here to Utah in, I don't know, early 1980s. I mean, she's old as dirt, but I mean, and I love her to death. You can tell her I told her that. But she moved out here in early 1980s, knew nobody. And over the last 50 years, or I guess that'd be 40 years, she has built her SOI to where she gets, 20 to 30 deals every year by just keeping in contact with her SOI. So, Allie, there is business to be had there, whether it's now or whether it's down the road. So good job. All right, what else? What else? Where else? How else can we find seller leads?
I had an idea just because one of my friends that I've been talking to, she's going through a divorce. So you can go to divorce listings.
Hey, how do we find divorce listings?
You go to the public court documents
Okay,
and
so
look through to see if there's any properties connected to names.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's such a good point because having gone through the divorce process myself, um, when you have a property involved, it doesn't always, but it can make that process really um, messy on top of the other things that are going on in a lot of the divorces. So a great opportunity to be the savior to come in and help do what needs to be done. But it takes going down to the courthouse and getting those reports and doing some reverse engineering to to the names and or the addresses to find those. But yeah, divorce one's a good one. What else? Here, expired. Okay, now Nasir's got expired. Yep, that is one of my core pillars right now is expireds. Are we seeing more expireds in the last year than in previous years? Say yes. And why would we be experiencing more expired listings than we have over the past couple years? Well, simply put, as we've been in a shifting market, sellers are always the last to know what the price of the home should be. So if you remember back in 2019, 20, and 21, as a listing agent, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. You could have a house, the market analysis came back at 400. You could list it at 450 and probably get multiple offers at 475 and get it cash. Well, those days have changed because the supply demand has inverted and interest rates have gone the opposite direction. And so now homes are sitting on the market longer. Sellers think their homes are worth more. They're sort of in that ideology of 2020, 2021. And so homes stay on the market longer. And then they get frustrated with their agent in most cases, and they cancel or they expire. So it's another opportunity for us as agents to call, find their pain points, build a relationship, and come in and be the savior for that. So expireds are a really good one. FSBOs we have down here, for sale by owners. Anybody call those? Nobody? I don't either, but it is a source. Best way to find those, go to, well, unless you have a dialer, and we'll talk about that here to finish up the call today. But if you've got a dialer, like I use RedX, I can get FSBOs uploaded. If you've got another one called Vulcan, you can get for sale by owners, or you can just go to KSL, for example, or Facebook as two examples, and find people that are selling homes on their own. Okay, so FSBOs are good. Door knocking. Okay, I love that, Nasir. Do you do that yourself? Do you do door knocking?
I don't. I think I did it like once or twice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's not for every. By the way, all of these are just tools in the tool belt, right? And it's not for everybody. I typically don't like door knocking. I haven't really liked it, but it's as I build out my farm, that's going to be a key component is going around and meeting people in my farm, which brings up farming. Anybody not know what farming is? And farming is just taking an area. A lot of times it's close to where you live and being the realtor of choice in that area. And like my farm that I'm building out right now, and going to start direct mail and door knocking and calling, it's going to be about 400 homes. And I can dwindle that list at any point in time based on who's been there the longest, who's maybe an absentee or absentee owner, people who live out of state or in another house. I can do a lot of filters, but they're going to start getting direct mail from me. They're going to start getting calls from me. They're going to start getting door hangers. I'm going to take my 2 children out, and we're going to start canvassing the neighborhood like this. And by the way, they'll get a newsletter. But all of this is going to be done month after month after month. And it may take me 12 months before I even get a phone call back. Okay. So farming's one. What else?
So farming can tie into like circle prospecting, right? Like once you have a warm lead, you can just start mailing or whatever.
Yeah. You want your farm. Yeah, it's a good point. If you get a lead on circle prospecting, and maybe it was done off of a just listed or a just sold, yeah, you can direct mail them. You should direct mail them. They should be on your 8x8 and 33 touch that's outlined in the book here. Yeah, they're on a similar campaign. My farm is going to be unique to being the realtor of, like, I want to be the realtor of choice of that area. So the first thing I did when I identified my farm, I said, okay, I could probably do a few hundred houses. So I just around 400. Then I went through and I looked at the turnover rate, and you can get that report from a title company. And I found out that my turnover rate was about 4.5%, which isn't great, but in Salt Lake County and in other areas of Sandy where I live, that was one of the highest. And so I was like, okay, so not great, but it's one of the better ones out there. So I want to start to target people that have been in their homes for a while, have built up equity. Maybe there's houses in my neighborhood that were built in the 60s and 70s. And maybe they're the original owners and they're getting older and they want to transition. Right. The other thing I looked at with farming, so again, we talked about tactics and then maybe going a little deeper. If you decide to farm, you also want to look at, in that geographic farm, has any agent taken market share of note? So for example, in my farm, there were 11 deals that closed last year. Of the 11, not one was a duplicate realtor or brokerage for that matter. Okay. And I don't ever get direct mail. So that tells me it's ripening. It's ripe for the picking for me to go and start being aggressive with direct mail and calls and adding value, because no other realtor is doing that. That makes sense? Okay. So that's farming. How about death? Yeah. Think about that. Oh, the book I'm talking about is the Millionaire MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. So if you think about it, right, the boomers, so I'm Gen X, people above me are the boomers. Those are people that are probably in their, I don't know what, mid to late 60s, going on into their 70s. Do you think there are people that are dying in that category? How do you find that? Anybody?
Would you look
Okay.
at obituaries?
Yeah, and that is a good one.
I mean, I wouldn't want to call someone right after
Yeah.
their family member died, but
Yeah. No. You could. And that's a really good thought. I think your head's in the right place. If somebody dies, let's reverse engineer this, because I don't think any of us are going to go look through an obituary, show up at the viewing, and have a conversation. Okay. But if somebody passes away and they were the only one on title, whether it be by themselves or maybe their spouse or significant other passed earlier, what typically happens with that house? You got one of two options typically. It goes through
State
probate.
takes-
What's that?
I was gonna say the state takes it, or intra-family
Well,
trust, or
Yeah. So it's either going to be in a trust or it's going to go through probate. One of the two. So side note, even if somebody's got a will, okay, it can still go to probate. But if you have a trust, it ain't going to probate. The trust will outline exactly what needs to happen. So how do you get in to knowing who's got trusts and who's got wills?
talk to an estate planner maybe.
There you go. Yep. So part of this is, go back to the divorce piece. If you just went to Google and Googled best divorce attorneys in Salt Lake County, you'd probably get a long list. If you said, give me the top 5 estate planning attorneys in Salt Lake County, you'd probably get longer than 5. My point is, if you start to create a network, a professional network within your own sphere of estate planners, estate planning attorneys, divorce attorneys, right? Couldn't you start masterminding and networking with them so that when they have new clients, that there's an opportunity for them to pass on business to you? Because of course you're going to do the same thing to them when you find people that don't have a trust, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got the right person that I'd love to introduce to you that can talk about why a trust could be right for you. See how that works? So if you're looking for, let's rewind the tape here. Why are people moving right now? They're not moving because they want to take the 7% interest rate when they're sitting on a 3%. Why are they moving? There's only a handful of categories.
Because they have to for
Okay, which
either
could be
job
like
or marriage.
could
or
be like
whatever.
relocation, right? Maybe one. Could be death, could be divorce, could be their downsizing. Right? So think about life events. When you're thinking about listings, I want you thinking about life events. And when you can reverse engineer that, now you can go start to figure out who you need to talk to then get business from them over time. It's not going to happen overnight. This is all, every one of these things are long plays. Like they're not going to happen overnight. Okay. Who's got a database? Let me ask you this. Anybody have a database of more than 50? If you do, just put something in the chat. Anybody over 50? Anybody over 100? Doesn't matter. Okay. So if you've got a database of any size, what would happen if you called them and just made it part of your care call, part of your quarterly check-in, and said, hey, I'm hosting an event where I'm having an estate planning attorney come and talk about the advantages of setting a trust up and how that will help you in your wealth planning and your afterlife planning, right? And we're going to do it on this date from this time to this time. You think you'd have people show? Okay. And now they show up. And if your estate planning attorney does and presents good, he or she has an opportunity to get additional business, right? So, and if you're looking to build your database, you can use, Facebook, Eventbrite as just 2 small examples of hosting an event like that to where maybe it brings in new people. Okay. So when we're thinking about listings, think about life events: death, divorce, disability, downsizing. They have to move for relocation. And then start talking to the people that are going to be the conduit for you being introduced to them. Right? Financial planners, great. Divorce attorneys, great. Estate planning attorneys, great. Right? Anybody live close to a nursing home or know of a nursing home in some proximity to either your office or where you live? Most of us probably do. How about making an introduction to whoever the manager, whoever is the senior person in that retirement home, so that as they get people who are looking at coming and using that facility for their loved ones, maybe there's an opportunity to do an event about how to handle the estate once they transition. All right, so we're a little over halfway. Who's got questions so far? Throw them in the chat. So Letitia said, as another life insurance broker, yeah, I mean, as you build your professional network, yeah, insurance is great. Yeah, insurance brokers are great. Okay, any questions? Thank you, Allie, for that. So we've made a list of about, I don't know, looking here, 7, 8, 9. What do you do with this? Tell me, what do you do with this information? Come on, somebody help me out here. What do you do with all the information? We just made a laundry list of almost a dozen ways of finding listings, and that's not the entire list.
I would say pick one, start off by picking one or two, because it can be overwhelming initially when you see all these different avenues you can take. So take it one step at a
Okay.
time and pick what you think you're comfortable with or whatever your strong suit is.
Yep. Yep. Dude, I love it. I mean, that's exactly what I would tell you. Like, as human beings, we have a hard time doing anything more than 3 things at any time. And I would say that's probably pushing it, maybe 2 things. But if you fall into the one thing philosophy, I would ask, what is the one thing you can do such that by doing it will make finding listings easier than they've ever been? So Taylor writes, pick what you think works and get after it. Yeah, dude. As you do this, measure it. Okay, so door knocking is going to be your thing. Okay, measure how many hours are you door knocking a week? How many doors are you knocking? How many answers are you getting? How many shut the front door type responses are you getting? How many dialogues are you having? How many people are you adding to your database? Like, measure all of this stuff. When I'm calling expireds, it tells me how many calls. That's easy. It tells me how many contacts. And at the end of each week, I add it all up. Okay, how many calls did I make? How many contacts did I make? How many people did I add to my database? How many Google reviews did I get? So make sure that whatever you go after, and we're talking about listings, but whatever you go after, that you are measuring it. And if, let's say, you're door knocking and you measure it in the first week, you don't get the great results, don't worry about it. Give yourself time for you to get better, more skilled. Give yourself time for those conversations to come out a little bit smoother. And when you do that time on task over an extended period of time, don't be surprised if it starts working for you. But to Tanner's point, and I would take what he just said about pick what you think works for you. Man, if you just absolutely get just nauseous door knocking, thinking about door knocking, don't go do it. That would be my advice. Okay. If calling pre-foreclosure, that wasn't on our list, that's another one. If you're calling somebody who's in pre-foreclosure or maybe foreclosure, but that just makes you just ill, probably not going to be great at it. Not saying you can't, but probably not. So pick the 1 or 2 areas that you can do because it doesn't affect you like maybe another area would. If you look on page 138 of the MREA, there's a whole slew of items under prospecting. And some of these are, it has apartments on there. Apartments probably going to be more for buyers. Okay. But you've got for sale by owner, expires, just sold, just listed, past clients, allied resources. Those would be your your doctors and your lawyers and anything like that. Banks, third-party companies. So third-party referral sites. Open houses. Let me ask you this. I just read open houses. How can you find listings at open houses? How can you find listings at open houses?
You might have a nosy neighbor come around, try to catch them.
Okay, yeah, fair. Yeah. And is there a possibility? Yep, there it is. If they're looking to buy, maybe they have something to sell. Great job, Taylor. Yep. So take a look at page 138 of the MREA, and don't worry about the marketing piece unless you've got money or you've got funds allocated to do that. Think about prospecting. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Because I gave you the exhaustive list there. We went through about 10. Any thoughts or questions before I finish up on TPCA? Anybody knows what that is? All right. TPCA is the Telephone Protection Consumer Act. Okay, there's some legislation that goes through on the 27th. So just in a few days. And if you're not up to speed, I would encourage you guys to just Google TPCA guidelines. Because how we prospect this year for circle calls, or how we outbound call, how we cold call, just got a little different. So if anybody's using a triple line dialer like a Mojo, don't do it. Robocalls are if a person on the other end can knows the law and knows that you broke it because you used a robocall like a triple line or a double line dialer, it's minimum $500 and maybe up to $1,500 per instance. And if you've got an LLC, which I hope all of you do for your real estate business, your LLC is not protected. It goes after you personally. Okay. So the reason why I bring this up is because we've spent a lot of our time talking about outbound calls or calling outbound. I'd be remiss if I didn't just encourage you guys to get educated on the new TPCI guidelines. I gave you one of them. Don't use robocalls. I use a single line dialer that requires me to hit the mouse each time it calls. So that's fine. Okay. But the second thing I want to remind you guys is don't call people on the do not call list. That'll be the quickest way to get fined. Okay. And if you're using a dialer, it'll scrub against it, but it's not always perfect. So if you come across somebody who gets all nasty with you saying that they're on the do not call list, just be super polite and say, oh my gosh, you know what? I scrubbed the list. I'm so sorry. I will re-add you to it. And I will tell you probably 9 times out of 10, if not more, that's going to smooth them over as long as you did re-put them on the do not call list. Okay. Now, I didn't intend this call to be sort of end on a downer, but this topic has gotten a lot of discussion over the last 3 weeks. I've been on numerous conference calls trying to understand it myself. And what I realized and what I walked away from is that the more that this is being talked about means the public probably knows more about it. And I've never made it a practice to call people on the do not call list, so that's not an issue. But it could still be if one gets past the goalie. So as you're outbound calling, just keep that in mind. Go do your research on TPCA. Go watch whatever content's out there, because there's a ton of it right now, so that you don't put yourself in a situation where you're having a fine $500 to $1,500. And oh, by the way, the statute of limitations is 4 years. So keep that in mind. right? Okay, so I've got 3 more minutes. I know this goes till the bottom of the hour, but I got about 3 more minutes. I want to ask, was there anything that wasn't covered? A question, a thought? If so, that wasn't covered, put it in the chat. Okay. The other piece is, I think at 6:30, you guys start your evening huddle. So when I get off, you guys will just re-log in at the bottom of the hour. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Well, here's the deal. I don't know what all offices you guys are all in. I'm out of the Mill Creek office, the Salt Lake City office. But if you guys have questions, or if you want to dive deeper on a topic that we discussed, or maybe we didn't discuss and you were hoping it was going to, give me a buzz. And I'll just put my cell phone number in the chat. Feel free to give me a buzz, text me, call me. I'm happy to help. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys all being here. Go have a great night. Thank you.